Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. I started off this week coding a bunch of things in the back end. So the first thing I did was I made this script here with some buttons that'll help me test the game. So what these do is it allows me to save a file, reload the scene, or delete a file. And this is the save file. So basically, if I go over here and break some crystals and collect some currency, I will literally miss this every time on the first try. Yeah, let me just collect a few of these. So I've got $6 right now, and then so in game, if I were to save the file, or I could just do it through this, and then exit the game, and then start the game again, you'll see that I'll still have my $6, so the game successfully saved my progress. The crystals do reappear when I start the game again, but I could easily just make it so I can check to see if I've broken it, and it will delete itself before the scene starts if I've already collected it. But I'll see if I want that to happen later on in development. And then, so if I go into here, this is where I was doing some of the other work from earlier today. I added in this thing right here, which basically holds the names of all the objects that you can activate. So say if there's like a lever that will open a door and you activate it, it'll basically store it in here, and then this will be saved to the save file. So when the game starts up again, it'll check to see if the name of the lever is in this, and if it is, then it will reactivate it. Because when you first start up a scene, everything defaults to like the false state. So basically when it checks to see if it's activated from before, it will just reactivate it again. And then the other thing I did was I made a base class for things you can activate, such as levers or buttons or really anything. So basically it stores the object's name, and then it has a bunch of functions for when it gets hit, and for activating it, and for checking to see if it's been activated already and stuff like that. And having this base class will make it easy to make different sorts of behaviors for different activators. So that's basically what I've done on Monday, and tomorrow I think I'm going to keep working on the dialogue system. This Tuesday I was just working on the dialogue system. I've got a very simple version of it implemented. I found it to be quite complicated to program, so the process for it's going to be a bit slower than the other things I've programmed. But if you walk up to this character and press Y, it'll start the dialogue box, and I've just got some of the text from those objects as his words that he says. So what I did to get this was I created a new object. And it's basically what we call a static object, and what this means is it can be accessed from anywhere. And so I have it on a separate object in the scene, and I'm going to have all the elements of the interaction giving their reference to this, and it'll make it easier to manipulate everything from one place. So I have my dialog box script here, and this is basically what controls the box on the UI that shows the words, and it basically gives its reference to the dialogue master here, which basically then calls the dialogue box every time it needs it to type something. And then same for the NPC, he gives the reference of himself and the player to the dialogue master. It'll allow me to manipulate what animations they play during the cutscene, and what emotions they can display and stuff like that, as well as the sound files for in case I have voice acting. So I'm hoping this method will be easily expandable, and hopefully I can get in those other features that I'm planning pretty easily. But I'm going to work on that tomorrow. This Wednesday I kept working on the dialogue system and I got pretty far. I have the text, the camera movement, and the audio. So basically what I did was I made a new class for the dialogue, and what it holds is the text, the audio clip that will play when they start talking, and a checkbox to tell if the camera should be pointing at the NPC I'm talking to or my main character. So I did a bit of voice acting, and I'm not the best voice actor, but we'll have a listen. Press Y to ride kayak. Press Y to ride the bike. Press Y to ride skis. And also, so I hope you liked that. But when you approach them and start talking to them, both characters will point toward each other. Because it would be kind of weird if I was just talking to this guy's back. Press Y to ride kayak. Press Y to ride the bike. Press Y to ride skis. So the animation for him turning around is kind of abrupt, but the fact that the camera also like kind of jumps, masks over that, I'll probably add like a smoother turning animation later. Or maybe when you're in the radius, he'll already be turning to you. And yeah, the other things I need to add for the dialogue system are simple animations that I can choose from, and also I want to add different like eyeball models, like for different emotions. So like some of them will have like raised up eyebrows or like angry eyebrows, and then those will like appear as the guy is saying different things. But the thing is, for the animations, I'm having a lot of trouble with the humanoid rig type, so I'm probably gonna have to change it back to generic how it was before. And yeah, because right now the humanoid doesn't recognize the toes or the fingers on the character as well as the tail, but the generic one will keep the animations for it. The only trouble I'll have with that though is when you pick up an item, it uses animation layers which don't work for generic rigs. So I'm probably going to make it so I use IK instead, which is the thing that I used for the bike to keep his hands on the handles. So I'll probably just use IK to lift his hands up when he picks up an item. But yeah, I'll get to work on that on Thursday. Today I was just cleaning up some code, and I fixed the problem where if you were standing in between two vehicles or a vehicle and a NPC, that you would spawn into both of them. So if we go in between the bike and the skis, the character will only go to the last trigger that he goes into. So basically, if I go over here and jump out, I will walk first into the trigger of the skis and then into the trigger of the bike. And since I walked into the trigger of the bike last, it will choose the bike. And so the way I did this was I basically made a variable for each object, for the object radius that is currently being selected on the game master. And every time the character walks into a radius, that radius will set this variable to itself. And then when I press Y, it will check to see if that object radius is the one that's on the game master. And if it is, then it will select that one and it will call the interact function. And then whatever thing is on that object with the interact function, it will activate it. And then I also moved a lot of the code from the NPC and the vehicle transition to the object radius, all the stuff that I would just use on all of these things, and that let me cut down the size of these two scripts by a lot. And yeah, I just cleaned it up a lot and it's working pretty smoothly. And then the other thing I did was I changed the model type back to generic. So as you can see, his hands and toe animations are back. And so if I say go on the bike, he'll grab it properly again. And everything's working properly. And yeah, so this kind of broke the thing with the picking up objects. Oh, for some reason I'm not even knocking them into the air anymore, so I'm gonna have to figure out what's up with that. But yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. So right after recording, I figured out what the problem was. For the prefab that spawns the platformer character back in, I forgot to make the or set the interaction layer to the layer of these guys. So with the default character, it was set, and then after I went on the bike and then got back off again, it would have set it back to nothing, so it wouldn't have been able to pick these up. But I fixed that, and the real problem is now that I set the character back to the generic type, I can't use animation layers anymore. So I'm gonna have to use IK to lift his arms up when he's picking up an object. But yeah. To finish off this week, I was just working on the kayak. I'm redoing the script for it. I'm not completely done it yet, but I've got the buoyancy working. And I think it controls a lot more solid so far. And it just works a lot better with how it collides with water. But I'm going to keep working on this over the weekend and probably do a few other things too. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.